Hello and welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Freed, and I'm joined today by New York Jets legend and Pro Football Hall of Famer, Joe Klecko. Joe, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Great to be here today.
It's great to have you, man, of course. So you're here today on behalf of the NFLPA's new campaign titled Tackle Obesity. Can you share a little bit more about the campaign and what inspired you to get started with it?
Well, I think what it is how I was inspired basically is, I see a lot of guys around me who are my age and even older, and some even younger, who played and are facing this weight problem, and they really don't want to face it. It's a embarrassing thing to look at, in their own minds, whether they've been out 1 year or 30 years, you know, they still feel that they're athletes, you know what I mean? And in their mind, they have this athletic persona, and it's hard to admit that they have a problem, maybe. And what they don't know out there, which I've learned now through the program, is there's help for you. There's professionals to help you. There's drugs out there that they can help you fight the obesity problems and stuff like that. And it just takes a little bit of nudging to get them to admit or maybe identify with it, because, it affects a lot of people. I've had three friends of mine in the past year who are younger than I was at 60 and 65 years old in the area, dropped dead of a heart attack. And I'm not saying it was from obesity and things like that, but half of it's a contributor to it. You know what I mean? It's not easy for us as, per se, ex-athletes to go out there and identify with any problems. Sure, my knee got busted up because I played this many years and all that. But when you have heart issues, when you have weight issues, and it's affecting your heart, it's sometimes you got to go get it taken care of, and you're not willing to do it because of whatever reason, whether it's embarrassment, whether it's money, whether there's a lot of things that hold guys back. And I think the program identifies all those things that it can help you with.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like the average fan doesn't think about. When they're thinking about a retired athlete, they're thinking about maybe they have some ailments from their playing career, like you said, your
Right.
knee. They're not thinking of, oh, maybe, obesity could be affecting them. It's definitely something that fans don't think about. And like you said, maybe a lot of athletes don't really know how to address it either.
And that's the biggest problem, because, when you're done playing and you don't have a lot to do with athletics and stuff, and maybe you work a normal job, and some guys don't, they've had, their ability to earn enough money to where you don't have to, they become sedentary and they wind up sitting around. And, and we all know that, I seen it happen to my dad. My dad was a tough old bird and worked all his life. But when he retired, he said, "Oh, I got Social Security and I'm retired. I'm going to sit," and it killed him. It really did. He lived to 80 something, but the last 10 years of his life was nothing but strokes and problems. And was it from obesity? No, he wasn't an obese guy, but you can be anorexic and be obese. You know what I mean? The body, your body mass percentage of fat can be overwhelming to what your lean muscle tissue is, and people don't understand that, and that's very hard for your heart to deal with. When your heart has to deal with pushing around blood through all the fat and not lean muscle, it's a lot easier to do it with lean muscle, and it's a lot harder to do with fat. And people that think just because maybe they're thin or something, their lean muscle tissue's not there, and they don't understand that they can be obese by the standards of doctors, and that's something you have to take care of.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think it's definitely something that a lot of people don't realize and they don't think about. So it's good that the NFLPA has this new campaign that they're kind of putting at the forefront and trying to get people to take notice of, I suppose. Now, in the beginning, I referred to you as not only a Jets legend, but a Pro Football Hall of Famer, of course. Now, it's been a long time coming, a longer wait than it should have been. I'll ask you, how does it feel to finally be a Hall of Famer?
Well, I got to admit to you, it's been a whirlwind. It really has, and ever since, even when they first announced me as a senior candidate way back last year in August, you kind of understand and know that, it's just a rubber stamp come February when the voters get together for it. But then when it finally happens, it's funny. I mentioned it to somebody. Uh, Even at the Super Bowl when we were announced, you know, it's for me it's 30 years, and that's a long time to wait for anything. But I was never really expectant. That was the great thing that my wife and I really had about it. If it's not God's time, it's not God's time, and His timing's perfect. But it happened, and then it was funny. We came home from the Hall of Fame and had the induction, and we're all back. And I had a lot of things to do. The next couple of days, I was still traveling, and I came home. I think the Wednesday or Thursday after, and her and I are lying in bed, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up and I said to her, I said, "Honey," she goes, "What?" I said, "Do you know I'm in the Hall of Fame?" So it took that long to put it all together mentally, and the concept in your heart, that yeah, I'm a member of that 370 guys that are, the one percenters, of the whole NFL.
Yeah, you are the best of the best, and it took
Yeah.
a while. It took a long time, but better late than never. It finally happened, and I know every Jets fan is ecstatic about that.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's been so rewarding for fan wise that all the comments I've had and stuff, and even in the beginning maybe a little negativity here, man, and the fans were so much on my side with it. I loved every minute of it. So and I've always been a big supporter of our fans because without fans, who are you? You really, I mean, who's going to watch you? Nobody. So I think it's a big deal for the fans also.
oh no, most definitely, for sure. And obviously, you know what it's like to have a Hall of Fame career. You're in the Hall of Fame. Looking at this Jets roster, is there anybody you think can kind of follow your footsteps and maybe one day end up joining you in Canton?
Well, they've got some players this year for sure. I mean, Wilson's such a great receiver. And I love the way he talks and presents himself. Even he is a pro from the word go. He really does. He talks to the press in a great way. He doesn't. He doesn't. You know. He's not haughty at all. He's very humble. And he's the kind of guy and I think the other that is Quentin. As a defensive tackle, I was at the Jets luncheon and they talked about they brought me in and we talked on stage for a while and I talked with him a good bit that day and God, I thought I was talking to a kid just coming out of high school. I swear to God, as humble as he is, he's such a nice guy. And one thing he said in the paper or online that I read, and he said that how he handles himself. He goes, he always handled himself in a way his mom would be proud, and that says mouthfuls for anybody. But as far as a player, he's a stud. I mean, he's a wrecking force. He's something else. So those two guys right there, as far as you know, future Hall of Famers, they got a great career ahead of them. But they have the right attitude. I mean, humility is a wonderful virtue, and both of them guys have it.
Absolutely, and that's obviously high praise coming from you. You've been there, you know what it takes to be in the Hall of Fame, so that's definitely high praise. I think we have to talk a little bit about the unfortunate stuff sort of going on with the Jets and
Sure,
quarterback
absolutely.
thing. Now, you never got to play with Joe Namath, but obviously you know him very well. Like, of course, he was the person who gave you the famous knock, the Hall of
Yeah,
Fame knock earlier this
yeah.
year. What are your thoughts on his comments earlier in the week about Robert Saleh, Zach Wilson, and the entire Jets organization?
I just think I don't know. I think if Joe was sat down and thought a little bit more about it, I don't think he would. Because Joe's not that kind of guy. I mean, he really isn't. He's a gentle person that way. And as far as his comments, they're never really harsh. He made something like, well, maybe they should not have worked a little more on this or that. But he's never been this harsh. And I was very surprised at it. I really was because you know we all played the game and we listen. Salah puts it together. Douglas puts it together. Zach Wilson throws it, but they don't all block for him. They don't block for the running game. Not everybody catches every pass. So it's one guy doesn't lose a game. It's a team that loses a game. Now, could some of them play better and you're expecting more? I think the greatest thing, the biggest problem is there was so much expectation from this year's team, especially what they did last year, where they made on that run and they played so well. And then everybody got hurt and they lost the last 6 out of 7 games. I think that was a disappointment, but there was hope for this year. And then when Rodgers goes down in the first play of the Buffalo game and they come back and they put it together and they win, there's no saying that they can't do that anymore. Is Zach Wilson going to be Aaron Rodgers? We all know that's not going to happen. But can he learn to manage a game? Listen, I think what would be really great, really, really great, is if Aaron Rodgers got to come back now and sit on the sidelines and really mentor Zach Wilson right now, because, if they gave him the ability to learn from a guy like Rodgers, a coach can teach you. A coach can teach you steps, release, all those things. He can't teach you how to anticipate defenses. And that's the biggest thing with young quarterbacks today. They get fooled a lot, especially, well, it was very evident, when you play against a guy like Belichick. Belichick's one of the smartest defensive coordinators in the league. And when he has ever plays against rookie or young quarterbacks, he usually does well because he knows what he thinks they're looking at, but they're not looking at, Like Aaron Rodgers knows what he's looking at, So to kind of convey that into a rookie's head, that means a lot. So I'd like to see him be able to come, I know he's rehabbing and he's got a lot of things to worry about himself, but it'd be nice to see that happen. But what Joe did, I really believe, I think, I know this is a fact. If Joe had to do it over, he would have recanted that right away.
Yeah, like you said, it comes from a place of frustration. Like Joe has always been a super positive, optimistic Jets fan. I guess you can call him a Jets fan at this point. So it just, like you mentioned, the expectations were very high. Everyone is very frustrated with what happened and how the season is going.
Sure.
I do want to talk to you about Aaron Rodgers too, because I think you can share some interesting perspective on this, because Aaron Rodgers, it does seem as though the expectation is he will be back in 2024. At least that's the hope. Now, it's a long road to recovery for him, and it's one that you've been on before. Of course, the knee injury you suffered in 1982, that caused you to miss pretty much the most of the season. You did return later, but obviously it's a different injury. But can you share any insight into what that rehab process is like for a pro athlete recovering from a serious injury?
Well, the two differences in his injury and mine, of course, they're both tendons, which is equal. And doctors will tell you that, the blood supply to a bone is the most in your body. The second most is a tendon. And the tendon, the more blood supply you have to an area, the better healing process it is. The other side of it is flexibility and rehab. I remember, everybody told me my career was done, let alone not play again. So I had mine the third game of the season, and I broke my patella. Well, we went on strike, didn't mean nothing to me, but I came back to play in all the playoff games, and everybody said that was unheard of. But I know what it was like, and I knew how I rehabbed. I was an animal at rehabbing because I had a lot of injuries, and when I rehabbed this, I lived to get the flexibility back so I could start running, so I could start lifting. The steps that the trainers gave me to do, I exceeded. Now, I could see him doing that because there's no doubt in my mind that he doesn't want to end his career like this at all. He's not walking out in the sunset like John Wayne here, and he's going to Hall of Fame. Now, there's a guy, 4-time MVP. We all know what his future is, but he doesn't want to let this team. He came in here, and the one thing I had in the beginning when I talked about it was I didn't know if he could sit with these young guys and really have the nerve to get through some of the growing pains with mistakes of rookies. Now they bought Lazar and Cobb in, and hopefully that would have helped him in what he was trying to accomplish. But I was always worried about that. But he endeared them. He came in here, went from his dark place to watching plays and going to Knicks games and everything else. That was a total transformation of a man. You know what I mean? Why he did that in Green Bay, whatever it was, that was his business. I never expected to see that. But as far as him coming back to play, evidently they talked about what they did with his repair was an advanced, so he can come back and play earlier. Now I don't really know what that is, okay? And even I had an orthopedic explain it to me, and I don't understand it totally, but it is a benefit to playing on it and not stressing it. So as soon as he winds up getting the flexibility back in it, well, first it's got to repair, it's got to heal, and you figure there's going to be 8 weeks for that really to heal. It may be 6, but you figure 8. And then once he starts really the process of stretching it and getting back his mobility, then he can work on his strength. Then he can work on his movement. I mean, I listen, I know it's a tough injury, and I may be talking out my, but I came back and played in 4 months in a patella tendon rupture. I tore it right in half. And I don't know if he did that. I don't know if he did it. I don't know if he tore some of it or all of it. Mine was torn in half. They actually cut mine apart and they sliced it back together like meat, and they sewed it. And so mine was even shortened up more than you would, and I still got the flexibility back and strength. And I worked on it day and night. That's the only thing I worked on. And of course, this is what he has now, and will he come back and play this year? I don't know that. And then, will the Jets be in the playoffs, like they were hoping to be? We don't know that either. Okay. So my guess is you'll see him next year in camp, and he'll be fine in camp.
Definitely. And I know every Jets fan is excited to have him back. And Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. I think I speak for all Jets fans when I say that we couldn't be happier that you are finally immortalized in Canton as one of the greatest of all time. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Appreciate it.
Of course. And Jets fans, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I've been Justin Freed. That has been Joe Klecko. We'll see you guys next time.